is we're approaching a very interesting subject about the beast. Revelation 13 is chapter 13 is perhaps the most talked about chapter in the entire Bible, outside of maybe some of the words of Christ. So let's get on with it. We were talking about earned authority, or about the authority of the beast. The beast is created by the dragon. The dragon created the beast out of the multitudes of the peoples of the earth. And it gives it its power and authority. And we talked about the authority of the beast. The beast rules by powerful authority. This is what gives it its power. And what's interesting about this is there are two types of authority, but the beast uses the negative authority rather than positive authority. What are the two types of authority that we have? See if anyone remembers.
Is it earned and unearned?
Exactly. You have earned and unearned authority. So what's the difference between earned and unearned authority? Does this mean that you go to a doctor, he has a certain amount of earned authority, he can prove that he has the ability to set your bones, or maybe do an operation or remove something? There's certain things that a regular doctor has earned authority with. But then there's certain things that he doesn't have earned authority with. For instance, the average doctor, they say, in all the years of schooling he only has about a day's worth of learning about nutrition. So most doctors, very few doctors, has an earned authority to tell you what's a good diet and what isn't a good diet. And so because somebody has a degree in connection with them doesn't mean that they have an earned authority in everything connected with that tradition. They may have an earned authority about some things, but not other things. But what people do with, say, a doctor, for instance, is they give them 100% authority over everything. So whatever the doctor says, that's it. They don't think about it, and they accept authority beyond what perhaps the doctor has earned. So a good example of earned and unearned authority, let's say you want to learn to speak Spanish. Okay, if you want to learn to speak Spanish and you're looking for a teacher, you want to be taught by somebody that understands the language and can prove that they can actually speak it. So let's suppose there's two teachers come forward, so yeah, I can teach you some Spanish. What do you do to prove which one is the earned authority? What do you think, Vivica?
I will check with my soul and my intuition.
Okay, and what else would you do before that?
I would test them.
Right, test them. How would you go about testing them, Ace?
Well, ask them.
Yeah, tell them to speak a little bit of Spanish to begin with, right?
Yeah, although most teachers are just appointed.
Right, right. So you, sorry. So you test them. You say, okay, let's put you two to the test. Um, I want you to speak some Spanish to me, and then have the other guy speak Spanish. And if one guy can speak Spanish well and the other can't, you can tell just by listening to him. When the first guy is stumbling along, he's not very fluent. Even though you don't know Spanish, you can tell this one guy, this first guy, he can't really speak it fluently. You can tell he doesn't have the right accent. But the second guy, he just rattles it off like he's a natural born speaker. So you can test them. And then you could maybe get out some books and test them with the vocabulary. And now, how do you say um, peace in Spanish or something like that? And give him half a dozen words. And if he doesn't know the words, then he doesn't know Spanish well enough to teach. He's just going to teach you out of some book, and he's not really going to be an effective teacher. So he's not an earned authority. But the other guy, he just can rattle it all off because he's really understands Spanish, or maybe he is Spanish himself. So he's a good teacher. So you test them, and this is what doesn't happen with the beast. The beast doesn't allow himself to be tested. The beast says, and those who represent the beast merely say, I am appointed as your authority, and so you need to do what I say because I am the authority, and I am not to be questioned. Now, those of you who grew up in a religion, did you find that there was authorities in your religion that you were just not to question or not to test?
Absolutely.
Give us an example, Scott.
Well, just broadly speaking, every religion has its own belief system, and when you convert to that religion, it's a requirement that you adopt their belief system, and you adopt it, or you don't get to become a part of their group. And you adopt it, or they say you're going to go to hell, in whatever version of hell they're talking about. And once you adopt that belief system, then you adhere to it and you don't question it. And if you do, then like the Mormons, they'll give you the answers that are in the belief system. So all the thinking is done for you. You're supposed to stop thinking and just accept all the answers that they've already formulated. And if you go beyond that and ask questions that they don't have the answers to, they tell you it's not pertinent to your salvation, or they tell you that it's there's things that we don't need to know right now. You'll find those out after you die and become buddies with Jesus, or whatever, however they put it,
Yeah. It's interesting that each one of these has a different thought form. I've attended a number of different churches and movements. Like you attend the Jehovah's Witnesses, for instance. Well, I'm mostly familiar with the Mormons, and they have a very strong thought form. And when you're in Sunday school, you know the questions that you're not supposed to ask. So nobody asks those questions. Now, when I've attended like the Jehovah's Witnesses, they're the same way. You know what you're not supposed to bring up. And when I've attended like New Age movements, they're the same way too. You know what is appropriate to support and to not support. Kind of a funny story. There was a guy here in Boise that was making quite a reputation for himself. He was taking groups out to nearby foothills and communicating with flying saucers. And I think the Ashtar Command or something like that. And I received word about this, and I had a group of my own at that time, and I was quite curious about it. And so I talked to somebody that had attended. They said, "Yeah, we went there and we looked up in the sky, and there was these flying saucers." And he was receiving information from the commander of the flying saucers, and it was really fascinating. I thought, really? I says, "Can I go next time?" And they said, "Well, yeah, I guess so." So I followed him out, and we were all looking up in the sky, and somebody pointed up to the sky and says, "There's one right there." And I looked up and I said, "No, that's not a flying saucer, that's Venus." And it just put a damper on everything when I said that, and no flying saucers showed up. But somehow seeing Venus up there was I think hypnotic start to everything that would have caused everybody to have seen stuff. But because I told him, no, that's not a flying saucer, that's planet Venus, it just put a really damper on everything, and nobody saw anything that night. So I always had the feeling that if I had just remained silent, that people would have started seeing stuff. So anyway, the beast probably wasn't very happy with me for screwing with its power there over people. So what's interesting about the established authorities is many of the established authorities are not really the best authorities. You can get some really good medical advice from surfing the internet and getting comments from just regular people that have been through different medical problems and giving their solutions. And they turn out better than what the medical establishment tell us. Now, Joel Wallach did some interesting research. Is he spent many years clipping obituaries of doctors, and after clipping thousands of them, he did an average lifespan for the doctors in their obituary, and it was 58. Now, the average lifespan of people in the United States is about 72, so 58 is really low, which indicates that the medical establishment is not a good representation of earned authority. Now, on the other hand, I did some research myself. According to orthodox research, the average lifespan of a doctor is just a little over 70 years, which a couple years less than the average person. So even here, the doctors are not an example of what they are trying to help us be, which is healthy. Okay. And it's the same way with all the established professions. Psychologists, for instance, who are telling us how to be mentally healthy, a lot of them have a lot more problems than the average person. Here's a quote from an article about psychologists. At least 3 out of 4 therapists have experienced major distress within the past 3 years. The principal cause being relationship problems. More than 60% may have suffered clinically significant depression at some point in their lives, and nearly half admitted that in the weeks following a personal crisis, they're unable to deliver quality care. As for psychiatrists, a 1997 study found that the divorce rate for psychiatrists who graduated from Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine was 51% higher than that of the general population of that era, and substantially higher than the rate of any other branch of medicine. 1 out of 4 psychologists has suicidal feelings at times, according to one survey, and as many as 16, no, let's say 16 may have attempted suicide. So the people that are telling us how to be mentally healthy are the least mentally healthy. Matter of fact, they say that's one of the reasons that drew them into the profession was they had personal problems and they thought maybe learning about psychology may help themselves out, but apparently that didn't do the job. Then we send criminals to authorities, to correctional institutions to correct them. So the authorities are supposed to be in charge of the prisons, are supposed to be an authority about how to correct prisoners so that when they get out, they'll be an asset to society. What do you think about that idea, Scott? How you think they're authorities that we can depend on?
They're authorities on how to control individuals.
Yeah, that's what they're more into than correcting. And yeah, our correctional societies should be for correction, and they're not. And they have not proven themselves to be earned authorities about correcting people that have broken the law. And then we have attorneys. Attorneys are authorities based on the law, but how earned is their authority? How many attorneys do we know that will take the law and twist it and try to make the law say something that it was not intended to say? And we find that just the average person among society can understand the benefits of the law and how to apply the law a lot more than the authorities that interpret the law for us. And the same thing with politicians. Politicians seek for power, and instead of representing the people as an earned authority, they use their authority for themselves rather than to represent the rank and file. And then
JJ, you got to put that paper down. You
What?
keep blocking your paper. You keep blocking yourself with your paper waving.
Oh, okay. Thanks for letting me know. And then we have the preachers of the world, preachers telling us how to be spiritual. Are they earned authorities, many of them? There's a handful that may be, but many of them lead us in the wrong direction and away from the teachings of Christ. And how many of them teach an actual loving God? The scripture says that God is love. So a minister that is an earned authority should be an example about the teachings of love. But what kind of God do they tell us about? If you do not believe in the right version of Jesus, what's that God going to do to you?
Well, it depends. They blame your plight in life on your sins, and or they say if you don't, they take the position that they're the authority or the mouthpiece of God, and that you need to do what they tell you to do, or you're going to go to hell.
Now, would a loving God have that attitude?
No.
else here? Adam, would a loving God have that attitude?
That's a leading question.
Now you got some kids. Have your kids always done everything that you've asked them to do?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. Do you want to send them to hell for that reason?
Occasionally.
At least you're honest. And maybe God thinks that way too. I kind of would think about sending them to hell, but I love them too much.
That old Adam, he's a real ne'er-do-well.
Yeah. So when your kid makes a mistake, do you just give up on them and let them say the heck with them, let them suffer for eternity?
Maybe for a minute, and then you take a step back and kind of grasp the bigger picture, and yeah. So yeah, I think and I guess it goes along with the scripture. If giving your children good gifts, how much more would your Father in heaven give you? So I think, yeah, I think sometimes we're too focused in this world and put too much emphasis on the importance of the little things, and we set up a lot of the trauma that children later have to overcome by being that not so good father.
Right. And so the true teacher that understands that God is love will teach about love and how to make love actually happen, and how the heart of God extends to all of his children even more than our hearts do to our own children. When our children mess up, we think, well, that's too bad they messed up. Well, what can I do to help them out? That's what you think. Okay. But that's not what many of the ministers think that God thinks. They think that, well, I let them know what would happen, and so they're going to hell, and it's their own damn fault. And so, but that's not love. Love does not take that attitude. Love takes the attitude is that you will go through anything necessary to help your child get back on the path. And that's what an earned authority would do above everything else. And we don't have very many earned authorities among the teachers of not only Christianity, but of all the religions. They all have this attitude that some type of eternal punishment is needed, or separation is needed, rather than seeking the lost sheep. And the parable of the lost sheep is a great one. The shepherd had 100 sheep and one got lost. And so the true shepherd went and searched for that lost sheep. And he searched and searched, and he even put the others at risk to some degree as he searched, and he found it. And as he returned with this lost sheep, it says he took more joy over the finding and the bringing back of the lost sheep than all the 99 put together. And so this is a true example of God. And the love of God is, if we go astray from the spiritual path, his will is that we go on a quest to bring that person back. Doesn't matter how much he hurt our feelings or did damage, he's still one of the sheep that needs to be redeemed. Okay, so the problem and what gives the beast so much authority is this status. We confer status on people. They're a doctor, they're attorney, they're a minister, they're a reverend, and so they're an authority now. What they say, we need to take as gospel, and that's the power that the beast uses to control everybody's lives when they are not aware that they are being controlled. And oftentimes, the person that's looked upon as the least authority is actually the greatest. Look at Jesus. He didn't have any degrees that we know about. Just a regular guy showing up out of the blue, and he had an authority, an earned authority that was different than the established authorities. And because he struck a raw nerve with the established authorities by challenging their authority, they attacked him and eventually crucified him as a great lawbreaker. He violated their law as they saw it, and they put him to death. And they thought that portraying him as a great criminal that was crucified would put an end to him. But it was the opposite happened. And instead, his teachings have endured, whereas those who were his enemies have been forgotten. Okay, next it says, and I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and the deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. Now the beast had 7 heads, and it's symbolic of on several different levels. Number one, up at the time of the book of Revelations written, there were 7 kingdoms, major kingdoms of the earth, from the Egyptian, Babylon, Greece. The Rome was the 7th head as people saw it. And then there are 7 chakras, which is another symbolism of the 7 heads. The beast seeks to control all of the energy centers of the body, from the lower personality to the higher. He seeks to control everything. And one of the heads was wounded, as it were, to death. But the deadly wound was healed. Does anyone know what the Orthodox interpretation of that is? The Orthodox interpretation is the deadly wound was administered by the birth of Christ. When Christ was the powers that be, the Roman Empire, the 7th head had complete control over everybody's lives. And then the Christ showed up, and he produced a deadly wound to that because he challenged the authority of the entire world. And he created a movement that defied the authority of the beast. And they suffered tremendous persecution because of this, but it was a wound to the beast itself. And then Constantine came along and he implemented the state religion, and that pretty much healed the deadly wound because he made Christianity, then remade it so it actually, that which fought the beast actually become the beast. And so that's one interpretation that has some validity. But then an even more pertinent one happened back at the foundation of the United States. At the foundation of the United States, the world was controlled by unearned authority. each nation had some type of king or dictator that had complete control over everybody's lives. And when America was discovered, a lot of people thought, well, I can escape some of this control. So they escaped to America, and still the King George tried to control America from afar. It was kind of difficult, but he did everything he could. And then a group of people got together and they decided they wanted to defy the authority of the beast. And so we created a constitutional government that allowed a Bill of Rights and freedom like the world had never seen. And this caused a blow to this seventh head of the beast, which is a residual of the Roman Empire and its power. So how was the deadly wound healed? We had the Constitution and Bill of Rights and freedom posed a deadly wound to the beast. But did the beast go down quietly and just say, okay, well, I guess I'm defeated? What did the beast do? Adam, you're thinking on that direction. I bet you got an answer.
He turned the deadly wound into a beast.
Yeah. And how did it do that? With what we allowed in this country to create the deadly wound was free elections. So the idea was to elect representatives and then they make law. How was that subverted by the beast? Who makes all the regulations now? Is it the people that we elect or someone else?
I think it's the lobbyist.
The lobbyists influence it, but the bureaucrats, a lot of unelected officials in Washington, administrative people that are appointed to their position that don't truly have the interest of the people and aren't listening to, they pass regulation, law, make exceptions.
Yeah, the beast attacked on two fronts. First of all, like it says, we have the lobbyists and the power brokers influencing the elected representatives. So instead of representing the people, which produces the deadly wound of the beast, they're representing powerful interests instead. So that was one point of attack by the beast to reclaim its power. The second thing the beast did was it began to insert non-elected representatives that did not owe any allegiance to the people, but to the powers that be. For instance, almost all the regulations around COVID-19 about wearing masks or vaccination mandates were not implemented by our representatives, but they were implemented by people that were appointed, non-elected representatives. And this is where the beast gets its power, in the non-elected representatives. And they're controlling just about everything. All the regulations around the IRS is not made by, for instance, by our elected representatives, but we put the IRS together and then they create their own rules. And this is the way with almost all the government agencies create all kinds of rules and regulations that do not owe their beginning with elected representatives, but non-elected. So we create these bureaucracies and then give them power over us. And this has healed the deadly wound to the beast. So again, we have the beast in control. And another Another thing that supports the beast is the media itself. The media tells us what is right and what is wrong. It's not the elected representatives that do this, but the media bypasses the power of the people, the elected representatives. They tell us what is politically correct. They tell us what speech we can speak. They tell us what our kids can learn in school. And they, with the media, unelected representatives, the lobbyists controlling the representatives that we do have, it has healed the deadly wound. And so we have the beast in full power, pretty much. Okay. The question now is how do we get out from underneath the power of the beast? Very powerful. If you challenge the beast now, you can tell where the beast has power when you decide to go against its decrees. If, for instance, you were in the military and the beast decreed you need to be vaccinated or be thrown out, if you decide to not get vaccinated, then you just lost your job. And a lot of people had this happen when they were work with large companies. That's just a recent example. And people that go against big pharma and say, well, ivermectin is something that we need to look into as a cheap alternative. These people are were in danger of losing their medical license. A number of them did, even though I read about cases of several doctors that used hydrochloroquine and zinc, ivermectin, that had close to 100% rate of cure of COVID. That didn't matter. They were dismissed and attacked, and some of them lost their licenses. And that's just one example of the power of the beast. And all these controls around it was not implemented by our elected representatives, but by people that were appointed. You know, for instance, Fauci wasn't elected by anybody to do anything. And many of the others in the World Health Organization, they were not elected by the people as a whole. And so challenging the beast is a very touchy matter. Okay.
If you had to, JJ, if you had to identify a period where the beast was truly healed, I mean, you look at World War II, you know, you talked about how the door to where evil dwells was sealed maybe 80%, but then it opened back up. And I guess I would look to like maybe 1963 when they assassinated Kennedy, that might be when the door really started to open up and the beast was healed. You started to have a security state in charge of everything.
Yeah, the beast started to rear its ugly head right after the foundation of our country, and it was kind of back and forth. And then the Civil War, of course, closed the door to some extent, but then it opened again with the KKK and all those guys. And so it goes back and forth. And then when they implemented the income tax, that around 2016, the beast exerted a lot of additional authority. But then with the rise of Nazism, the beast increased its authority until we woke up to the fact that, hey, you know, there's a problem here. Let's put this down. And so the beast received a major blow at the end of World War II, but it did not destroy the head. The head surfaced again. Now we have to fight one way or another to redeem our freedoms one more time. And hopefully it will not resort to World War III, that we can do it on mental levels. Mental levels is where the main fight is. Mental and astral levels is where the main fight is going to be in the next generation. And the next generation will tell the tale. Okay, any other comments?
Well, you know, along the lines of sealing the door where evil dwells, I think you can't underestimate or devalue the value of the molecular order and how it would be an agent or a tool or a medium for the Christ to work through in sealing the door where evil dwells. I think the molecular order will play an extremely valuable role in creating a buffer for the Christ to work through, so he doesn't have to come on, you know, full bore, all powerful. He can work through the molecular order as an agent, as his own tool, and we would be valuable players in assuming that role.
Yeah.
So I think the molecular order is really the key to helping seal the door where evil dwells and creating a bridge to heaven on earth.
And until that time happens, it says, and they worship the dragon, which gave power to the beast, and they worship the beast, saying, who is likened to the beast? Who is able to make war with him? Okay.
We will.
So a slogan on that regard is you can't fight City Hall, so to speak. In other words, City Hall is representative of the power of the beast. Once you go against the established powers, you can say, well, you just can't win. There's no way to win against this beast. It has clutches over everything, and you just can't fight City Hall. And but you can fight them, and there is a way to win, and that's what we're going to be talking about in our next class.